Today we look at Matthew, the tax collector, from Luke chapter 5, reading two verses. And after that, he went out and noticed a tax gatherer named Levi, also known as Matthew, sitting in the tax office. And he said to him, "Follow me." And he left everything behind, rose, and began to follow him. And now Matthew's conversion is mentioned in three places: Matthew chapter 9, Mark chapter 2, and Luke chapter 5, which I just read before you. Levi, or Matthew, as he became known after his conversion, was a tax collector for the Roman government. It is possible that he, like Zacchaeus, lined his own pockets with some money. If so, he would have been a very hated man in his time. On the day when the Lord Jesus, passed by his office, saw him hard at work and called him to follow him. It happened as simply as that. Matthew's response, unreserved and immediate. So three pictures in looking at Matthew. First of all, Matthew counting his money. Jesus saw him sitting in his tax booth. His money bags were full. His account books were probably open, and he was meticulously going over those. Matthew's care of accuracy and detail. We know that he was that type of person just looking at his gospel and the details that he gives us in his gospel. So most likely he was immersed in his job. He was not liked probably by very many people. He was wealthy and perhaps lonely. He was efficient and methodical. Most likely a very keen businessman. Jesus called while he was doing his ordinary job. How often this incident is repeated throughout living life. Often God does the unexpected thing before us and calls us in unexpected times. I should point out here that it is not necessary to leave a secular calling to become a Christian. God calls us where we are and to where he has placed us, or where we are, to serve him. Wholehearted, dedicated follower to the Lord. So if your calling is a secular calling, serve the Lord Jesus Christ with all that you are. So Matthew changing his mind. A tremendous change took place very quickly in this man in verses 27 and 28. Did all this really happen as suddenly as that? Yes and no. Yes, verse 28 says it leaves us no doubt that Matthew had an immediate response. But in the other sense, it may not have been an immediate as it seems. For surely Matthew had given this matter a great deal of thought. Dr. Alexander White suggests that Matthew had been acquainted with Jesus for a long time, had come to hear about him, and that perhaps Jesus himself had even visited Matthew on a number of occasions to pay taxes. We do not know, but what we do know is that he was a thoughtful man, and here we're told that he was a man who changed his mind. So Matthew confessing the master, he had no thought of doing this secretly. He did it so publicly that no time in his action would it would have been a talk of the town. People would have been talking about Matthew now following Jesus. Now notice three ways that Matthew confessed the master. First of all, by leaving his sins. We're told in verse 28 of this chapter that he left everything. It certainly includes the whole idea of turning away from anything that was shady or underhanded or dishonest in his business. He turned away from his friends. He did this in a very special way. Verse 29 of this chapter tells us that he threw a feast in his house and invited all his friends so they could meet Jesus and to hear about his conversion, and maybe they could experience the same thing that he experienced. And of course, we know by the writing of the Gospel of Matthew. Matthew sat down and wrote about the Lord Jesus Christ and all that happened through him and to him. Take a good look at Matthew confessing his master. Are we a definite, open, dedicated follower of the Lord Jesus Christ? And can people see that? In whatever calling we are, serving the Lord with all our heart.